Okay, it is noon. I think technology is set up. Cool. All right. Hello, LinkedIn. Hello, YouTube. Thank you for joining the boardroom. So, I'm Courtney O'Connell. I am glad you're here for my weekly series on how to get promoted. So, I work with a lot of high performing managers across all industries. And one thing they all have in common is that most of them think that they're being evaluated for promotions based on how well they're doing in their job, which is why so many of you are working incredibly hard, white knuckling. But I want to give you the spoiler alert that that is not actually the evaluation. That's table stakes, right? So you've got to be doing excellent at your job, but your performance in your job today is not necessarily what you're being evaluated against to get promoted. You're being evaluated on something different and it's invisible, which is why I am doing the series on the top 7 silent, invisible tests that you're taking that you don't even know it, that I observed after my 20 years as an HR executive in the rooms where promotions were being decided. So through all of that experience, I climbed the ladder myself from administrative assistant to SVP and head of HR. So I've been on both sides of the table here, and I'm a full-time coach today. I run a company helping leaders like you really understand the landscape and how to really position yourself for that promotion. But this series, this weekly series, is to uncover those 7 silent tests that you are being evaluated against that you don't even know. These are unspoken, unwritten rules to how to play this game well. So last week, in case you missed it, I covered the first silent test that you're taking, and I call it the sponsorship test. And in a nutshell, what a sponsor is somebody senior and influential in your organization who will advocate for you behind closed doors. So, unlike a mentor, a sponsor is an unspoken thing. So, throughout my career, nobody once came to me and said, Court, I'm going to sponsor you for your next promotion. Instead, it's very subtle. So, a sponsor is somebody for whom you can align your work. It is somebody who you can get visibility to, somebody who you can really show what your potential is. What can you really do for them and for the organization so that when your name comes up in the room where promotions are being discussed, they are likely to say, "Hey, I know him. He did a great job on this project. I think he's somebody that we should be talking about." That's what a sponsor is. And so the work for you is to understand your own organizational dynamics. Who are the appropriate sponsors for you? And when I say appropriate, it's got to be somebody whose ecosystem you touch in some way, right? So if you are in HR, it might be difficult for you to find a sponsor who's running sales, or maybe not. I don't know your organization, but again, you want to think what's realistic for you and your work. So having a sponsor is critical. So you've got to have somebody advocating for you behind closed doors. And a misnomer, a lot of people assume that their boss can control their next promotion. But when we're talking about senior level promotions, most managers are not senior enough to be the decision makers. And that's why it's important to understand that ecosystem and make sure that you are known, that you're aligning work. I want to talk today about the second silent test that you are taking and likely don't even know. And it's something that I call the future fit test. So, promotions, especially senior level promotions, are about trajectory. They're not about your performance today. Again, your performance today is table stakes. Okay. So, you have to be a great performer. And when leaders are behind closed doors talking about senior level promotions, they're not talking about what are they doing today. They're talking about what they call fit for future. So, where is the organization going? And is this person the leader that we want at the helm of that direction? So, I work with a lot of leaders who feel very stuck because they're optimizing for excellence in their current role. Okay. It's important to be excellent in your current role, but that's not where you should be optimizing your time. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're thinking and you really understand, where is the organization going? Where is the business going? Because most people don't know that. They're not really clued in. A lot of high performers are getting it wrong here. They're so deep in execution that they have no idea where the business is actually going. And I mean this seriously. Too many leaders, they don't understand what are the strategic priorities of the organization, not just my department, not just my vertical, but of the entire organization. So, how do you get to know this? If you're working for a public company, you're listening to the earnings reports. You are watching what the competition is doing around you, because that's likely where your business is trying to keep up. If you don't ask your boss or ask other senior stakeholders, you might not get clued in here. So this is actually a really good networking question. I get a lot of questions about, if I get time with the senior leader, what do I talk to them about? I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to appear like I'm scattered and I'm not all that focused. This is a great question to ask senior leaders as you're networking. Hey, what keeps you up at night? What does the future look like? What are those key skills and capabilities that you're looking for in the leaders of tomorrow? And you're listening closely to what they're saying, because this is exactly the future fit test. I have a client who, just a really perfect example of this future fit. So he, in an organization, working incredibly hard, came to me because, really on the kind of precipice of burnout, and he really wanted to understand how does he perform better in a world where he's getting pulled from all different aspects. And his organization asked him to be on a task force for AI. And his inclination was to say, no, I don't have time. I appreciate you asking, but no. But we talked about it, and it's a no brainer. We know that every organization is trying to keep up with AI. This is clearly a skill for the future. So he said yes, and he joined that task force. And what happened was, not only did he gain visibility from leaders that he ordinarily would not have had access to, but he gained skills and a reputation around a priority for his organization's future, and that was AI. Okay, so it's too easy for us to say, no, I don't have time, because I get it. I was there. Time is finite. We don't have 24 hours in a day. And this is where the chasm is between people who stay in middle management and the people who are able to break into executive level leadership, is that they are able to figure out ways to stop the finite focus on execution, and realize how they can start stepping into strategy. And this, it's not easy. And this is why a lot of people seek help here, because you can't white knuckle everything and stay in control of everything. You've got to be thinking more strategically about your career, what's important to your organization, and how do you get aligned there. So you have to position yourself as a solution to what's coming. And again, here you've got to telegraph a little bit. You're listening deeply to what's being discussed at the earnings calls, at the quarterly, business review calls. You're asking the question, ask your boss, ask your boss's boss, what's coming down the pike? What are you looking for? What skills and capabilities are going to be the most important for the future? And you're going to find ways to build that. Okay, that's really positioning yourself as fit for a future, because you want to be seen as somebody who's already not only thinking at the next level, but somebody who's engaging in the future priorities for the business. Because remember, promotions, especially we're talking senior level promotions, these are risk decisions for the executive leadership team. They're taking a risk. None of us have done the job at that level before we step into the job at that level. And so it is a calculated risk that leaders are discussing behind closed doors, which is why when I tell you strong performance is table stakes, it is. You've got to be great at your job. And I can't help you there. But there are other factors that they're looking at for really the confidence of, am I willing to stake my reputation against this person's nomination for promotion? So what you need to be doing is the work of positioning. So show that you're thinking at that next level. Show that you're already engaging in what those future priorities are. Now, again, that might be engaging in actual work, like the AI task force I mentioned that my client got involved in, or it could be building skills and capabilities. Another example, I was still corporate in my corporate job in executive HR during COVID. And it was very clear to us that one of the future priorities for leaders in our organization was the skill of empathy, because everybody was going through a lot, and some people were feeling the impact of what the pandemic more heavily than others. And so we really had to think strategically around how do we create a management team that had deep empathy skills. So again, this was something that, HR and the leadership development teams had to figure out. But for you, again, it might not be something tangible like AI. It might be skills and capabilities from a soft skill perspective. So watch the strongest leaders in your organization. And when I say strongest, I really am talking about the most influential leaders in your organization. And really watch, what are they doing well? Now, most of them, 99% of them, are excellent communicators. So to be fit for future, you have to work on very strong executive level communication. But what else are they doing well? Why do people want to follow them? We used to call it followership. How are they really encouraging followership across the organization? These are soft skills that are very powerful at this level, and it's part of what you're being assessed against. Do we think you're going to be there in the future? If yes, you're less of a risk, and your name moves up on that readiness chart. So again, it's not about doing more. You are already doing likely more than you have time in a 50, 60-hour week to do. I understand this. I was there, and I work with a lot of clients who are there now. This is about reprioritizing, figuring out, how do I delegate more so that I can really be thinking about how I'm positioning myself? How do I align myself and my work? How do I raise my hand for the right work streams that really show that I understand the future of the business and I want to be positioned as ready for that? And in order to let go and delegate, you've got to trust others. This is the other chasm that I see a lot of middle managers get stuck in. It's an identity crisis, essentially, where your identity is the most effective person on the team. I'm the one that my boss comes to and that my boss's boss comes to, because they know I know the answer. They know I'm going to get this turned around and it's going to be better than anyone else could have done it. And that's great. So you're building a great reputation for yourself as an executor. But now it's time to start showing that you know how to lead and manage and develop other people, and you do that by delegating. So again, the first silent test is that sponsorship test, making sure that you've got an advocate at a senior level who is in the room and you trust is advocating for you on your behalf. And number two is that future fit test. Am I seen as a leader who is fit for future? I am embodying and building and demonstrating the skills and capabilities that I know are most important to my company going forward in the future. So I hope that that bite-sized piece of advice was helpful. It might be something that you haven't yet thought about. So do give it some thought. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. Feel free to DM me or grab time on my calendar. Always happy to meet with folks and answer any questions that you have. In the meantime, I am wishing you huge success, and go out there and go get them. Cheers.